Hey everyone, Mobius1 here, doing a long-awaited video. No, it's not the medic guide, not yet, though that's coming, I promise, this weekend probably. This one, as you've probably already read from the title, is how to join a faction. And by faction, I mean either the Rebel Alliance or the Galactic Empire. Now, old-time SWG vets probably... This was one of the first things they probably did after getting the emu, but for new players, this can be kind of confusing, and to be completely honest with you, I'm surprised it's taken me this long to make a video about it, because they don't tell you how to do it in the game. You kind of either have to ask somebody, or you just kind of stumble across it. Anyway, I am not going to be using Mobius for this video because Mobius is going to remain 100% neutral as to not offend anybody, because I'm sure even doing this video, obviously if I'm going to show you guys how to join a faction, I'm going to have to join one myself, and I don't want to upset anybody by joining the quote wrong faction. So, I have decided that I'm going to use the Empire for this tutorial purposes only, and I'm using an alt of mine, Arthrales, who I mentioned in the very first episode of this Let's Play series, who is he's becoming a pistolier smuggler. So I have a few pistolier skills, some very basic smuggler skills. So he's probably considered a mid-level character. I mean, we're done with the starting professions, working on our advanced professions, but I'm nowhere near being master in either of them. So he's generally a mid-range character. He does wear the same armor as Mobius, though, so you can recognize him if you see him running around. Anyway, the reason I am using the Imperials is simply, it's a very simple reason. There is a command in-game, it's /GCW for Galactic Civil War. If you type this in, it will actually tell you which faction is winning. And as of now, as of the time that I'm recording this video, the Empire is winning. So, why make a video joining the losing side? No, I'm just kidding. I was a rebel on the live, so I'm really doing the Imperials just to kind of taste the other side. Though I played an Empire character for a while. But so what you want to do, the first thing you want to do is decide which faction you want to join. Keep in mind, joining a faction is not a permanent change. You can resign from a faction, and you can even switch factions eventually if you want to, and I'll talk about that at the end of this episode. But the first thing you need to do is find a recruiter for the faction that you want to join. So this obviously is an Imperial recruiter. Now I'm going to put a list of all of the recruiter locations I can remember. I might have to look this up later, to be honest with you. But in this video description, I will put a list of all the Rebel recruiter and Imperial recruiter locations. But right now I am standing in front of the Imperial recruiter in Theed, watching feral swamp tuskcats chase noobs down and kill them in cold blood. However, if I try to talk to this guy, he says I do not talk to terrorists and insurgents, and he will not speak with me. That's all he's going to say to me. Well, that's not very helpful, is it? And the reason he's doing that is because faction recruiters will not speak to you until you have earned their trust. And the way you earn trust is through faction points. So if I open up my character sheet, you'll see in the top right corner it gives you your faction standing, which right now I'm civilian. It will then give you both your Imperial and Rebel faction points, which, since I haven't done anything on this character yet, are both 0. To gain faction points for either faction, you need to do terminal missions from faction-specific mission terminals. So you can see right here, and most of the time, actually I'm going to say like 100% of the time, there's always a faction mission terminal next to a recruiter. So you should be able to find these in using the same coordinates in the video description. Jeez, I can't talk tonight. That being said, I do know there are Rebel mission terminals in Mos Eisley where there is not a Rebel recruiter in Mos Eisley. So you can do Rebel missions out of that city without joining the rebellion. Anyway, so what you need to do is you need to do these missions. These are going to be, basically, you have every category that you would normally you can do. Obviously, if you're a combat character, you're going to want to do destroy missions, and these are just like the basic destroy missions that you get from the regular mission terminals, though most, if not all of them, yeah, at least all of these, are going to be against NPCs. None of them are going to be against creatures. So, which is both good and bad. The good thing is, it means you finish the mission a lot quicker because NPCs do not respawn from these layers. It's not like a creature layer where once you start attacking the layer, the creatures start respawning. No, that's not going to happen with these, so you're going to finish the missions a lot quicker. Since the enemies are NPCs and not creatures, you're also going to be gathering, looting credits and looting actual loot from killing these enemies, as opposed to harvesting, organic resources like hide, bones, and meats. The downside, though, is you don't get as much experience out of these missions since you're killing fewer enemies than you would from a regular mission. So I don't recommend doing faction missions if you're still grinding experience. But basically what you're trying to do is get the key number here that you're looking for here is 200. So you want to get 200 faction points. And what I'm going to do is, obviously, I'm not going to record myself doing all these missions because I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to take. However, setting up a little timer here, I did fully buff this character, so I have full health, action, and mind buffs. And I'm going to start a stopwatch, and I will tell you exactly how long a mid-level character with buffs takes to get 200 faction points. Ready, go. Alright, so it took me roughly 45 minutes with some minor interruptions, and I wasn't grabbing the missions in the same direction. Or I'm sorry, I was grabbing 2 missions at a time in the same direction, but I wasn't checking the distances on them before grabbing them. So you could probably work it down to about a half hour. I was also looting the corpses, so if you really just want to speed grind it, you could probably get it down to about 20 minutes, if you're lucky. So, I mean, oh great, did he really poison me? He did. Oh well. Alright, so we're back here at the terminals. If you look now, I have 210 Imperial faction, because you get 14 per mission. And while you're boosting one faction points, you actually lose the other. So as I was gaining Imperial faction, now I'm negative 105 Rebel faction. And that really only matters if you ever plan on switching. Eventually, I believe the negative cap is negative 5,000. And once you hit negative 5,000, you'll get a message that says you can no longer lose faction. I don't remember the positive cap, if there is one. It's been so long. But once you have over 200 faction, you'll talk to the recruiter. I would like to join. Absolutely, it'd be a great honor. Ta-da! You are now a combatant. Enemy NPCs will attack you on sight, but you cannot be attacked by enemy players. Now, if I look at my character sheet now, where it says faction standing, instead of saying civilian, it now says Imperial combatant. That's lovely. What does that mean? Well, I'm glad you asked, Mobius. There are 3 faction statuses that you can be once you join a faction. They are Special Forces, Combatant, and On Leave. These are very, very important that you know these. So, special, let's just say On Leave. On Leave is the most basic. And when you're on leave, that basically means you're still associated with that faction. You will still have the emblem of whatever faction you join next to your name if you're on leave. However, it will be as if you are not a part of that faction when it comes to PvP or PvE against factional NPCs. For example, if you are a rebel, but you are on leave, Imperial stormtroopers and Imperial NPCs will not attack you. I should note, now that I joined this, that, well, here, this is what I'm talking about. these Imperial Storm Captains, they're pink for me, and you may notice when you join a faction, all players... Wow. I'm sorry, I have nothing to say to this. That's actually a really good costume. No, it looks less good when I examine him. But like in this lighting, holy shit, I actually thought that they somehow got Batman and Robin costumes into this. I love it. He's using the necklace as the Batman symbol. That is... Anyway, I don't even remember what I was talking about. So, if you were a rebel on leave, these Imperial NPCs would not be able to attack you. However, if you were a combatant, as you can see, like I said, I'm an Imperial combatant, these NPCs would open fire on you if you got too close. However, the difference between combatant and special forces is like when you flag yourself for PvP. That's basically what you're doing. When you're special forces, you're flagging yourself for open PvP combat against special forces members of the opposite faction. Alright? So it works on like a kind of like a step scale. You go from on leave, which is you're completely safe, to combatant, which lets you fight NPCs but not players, to special forces, which lets you fight both. Alright? Now, the only way to switch, and I don't believe... Right, yeah, see, there is no command such as PvP. I don't think that there's another command. Check. No, that's for something else. GCW should do the same thing. Yeah. I don't believe there is a command to switch status. I think in this version of Galaxies, the only way to switch is to talk to the recruiter. Now, when you talk to the recruiter, you have a couple of different options. I'd like to reevaluate my active military status. This would let you switch to become Special Forces. So if you want to go Special Forces, you click this, and I believe it takes 30 seconds to do that. It might be instant, but I believe it's 30 seconds. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to say is I would like to go on leave. Now this, on the other hand, takes 5 minutes. So it takes... I'm going to go ahead and say I'm like 90% sure that it's 30 seconds to go up a step. So it's 30 seconds to go from on leave to combatant, or from combatant to special forces. But it's 5 minutes to go down a step. So if you're special forces and you're being chased, you know, by another special forces member or a group of enemy special forces members, you cannot just roll up on a recruiter, talk to him really quickly, and expect to be safe. No, you still have 5 minutes in which you need to run and hide. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments on this video talking about the fact that the EMU has removed the TEF system, the TEF, Temporary Enemy Flag. I'm definitely going to talk about that later when I go further into the faction system and in the GCW. I really just wanted this video to be how to join a faction, because clearly there are a lot of other things. Oh, I don't even think I can talk to this guy while I'm switching. Yeah, great. I shouldn't have done that. Anyway, you can also notice while you're switching statuses, your name flashes. So you can see this speeder bike swoop is flashing right now between pink and green. Any players, if you've ever seen a player whose name is flashing, that is just an indication that they are switching PvP or switching faction status. So, as far as joining a faction, I want to talk about that. Resigning also takes 5 minutes. So if you want to quit a faction, it takes 5 minutes from the time you talk to the recruiter before you're actually out of the faction. And then, according to this post that I was reading, and I don't know if this is true at this iteration of Galaxies or not, it very well may be, and someone can comment and confirm this for me, it takes 5 days before you can join another faction. So not only do you have to work this negative faction experience back up to a positive 200, but if I wanted to now join the Rebel Alliance, it's going to take 5 days before a rebel recruiter will even talk to me, no matter how positive my faction points go. Alright, so that's definitely not something that you can just do on the fly. As far as... before I talk about that, one other thing about faction points, there is a command called delegate /delegate. If you do that, you can actually... it's like tipping faction points to another player. So you can do like a /delegate to this guy, and I could actually give him faction points, though I don't know if you can go... I don't think you're allowed to go below your 200 that are needed to join the faction, and I believe that there's like a tax, though I'm not sure on that. There's a lot of things that you guys are going to have to comment on, because I'm kind of hazy on some of these details. But I believe that there is a tax. Like if you delegate 500 points, it costs you like 550 or something like that. Anyway, so I'm just kind of anticipating some questions I'm going to get. Which faction should you join? It's really personal preference. Like I said earlier in this video, according to the game, the Empire is winning. I don't know necessarily what that means, other than the fact that they probably have more GCW bases, which again is something I'm not going to talk about, or I'm not going to cover in this video. If you have friends that are a part of a guild, or you want to join a guild, many guilds are faction specific. I know, like I said in an earlier video, I led a rebel only guild in live. So if you know you want to join a specific guild because you've watched videos of them or you've read their posts on the forums, you may want to find out what faction they are. The only other two things I can think of is armor and starship tastes. I mean, if you really like Stormtrooper armor, you should probably go Imperial, because you won't be wearing it as a Rebel. I think that there's like a basic Rebel armor in this that looks maybe like a... I don't know, like a Rebel Commando from Endor kind of armor. I would not look up... If you do a Google image search for Star Wars Galaxy's Rebel armor, you're probably going to get a bunch of pictures of NGE armor that isn't in the emu, so I wouldn't recommend that. But here you can see this guy right here just landed in Theed is probably a Rebel combatant, and these Stormtroopers decided they have something to say to him. So we can watch and see. He's buffed, so this is probably gonna go in his favor. Oh, well, here we go. Now I'm on leave. Alright, so you do get a system message when you go on leave. So let's see what this faction guy can say to me now. The only other thing other than the armor is once they do finally add jump to light speed to this game, you're going to have 3 different categories of... oh no, so he won't do anything with you while you're on leave. Well, let's see how long it takes. Yeah, 30 seconds. Alright, I was right. Once they do finally get jump to light speed implemented in Galaxy, or in the Emu, there's going to be 3 different pilot factions. You're going to have Rebels, Imperials, and Neutral again. You are allowed to be a neutral pilot faction regardless of what faction you are on the ground, but you can only be a Rebel pilot if you're a Rebel, and you can only be an Imperial pilot if you're an Imperial, which makes sense. So if you know there's a certain type of starfighter that you want to fly, you may want to make your faction decision based on that. Like if you know you want to fly an X-Wing, I wouldn't suggest being an Imperial on the ground, because you can't be a Rebel pilot and an Imperial on the ground. I will say, if you plan on flying a YT-1300, which is the Millennium Falcon style transport, that's a neutral ship. So you'd be, as long as you go neutral pilot, you'll be able to fly that regardless of what faction you are on the ground. Obviously TIE fighters are going to be Imperial ships only. So that's just one other thing, food for thought, to keep in mind when making your selection. Other than that, it's completely up to you. Have fun, roleplay a little bit. If you want to be a Rebel hero or an Imperial crime lord, whatever you want to do, go at it. Be crazy. There's definitely a lot more that I need to talk about when it comes to the factions in the GCW, but we're going to leave it at this for now. At least now you guys know how to join one, roughly how long it takes, and some basic details about it. Alright, so thanks for watching. And I regretfully request that you watch the bonus video that I'm going to be uploading after this. I'll put a link to it in the description. I don't know why I'm posting this video, but just watch it. I'll see you next time.